Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
As a mother has compassion for her children, so may Adonai, our God of compassion, for all of the family and friends of Penina Gould who would come here to remember this day. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. Our days are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over us and we are no more. But we trust that Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging. We begin our service by reciting Psalms, thus linking Penina's life to our ancient tradition, to the Jewish people, and to the eternity of God. Shir lamalot, esayin al harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri mim Adonai, ose shamayim va'aretz. Hayitein lamot raglecha, yanum shomrecha. Hinei lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai silcha yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'ereach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikora yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor seitecha uvecha me'ata ve'ad olam. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? This is a question the psalmist asked thousands of years ago, perhaps at a time of sorrow like this one. And here was his answer. My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, for your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from harm and guard your soul. For Adonai guards your going out and coming in, now and forever. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai roi lo echzar. Bino deshe yarbit tzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi shovev yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeis al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha heme nachamuni. Taroch lefanai sholchan neged sorarai. Dishanta v'ashemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chasidi refuni koyeme chayai. V'shavtu b'veit Adonai leorech yamim. Those are the Hebrew words of Psalm 23, which of course is also known as the Shepherd's Psalm because it guides us through difficult moments like this one. And invite you, if you'd like, to join me as we recite it in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
In our annual cycle of Torah, we are currently reading from the book of Exodus, but it's really from the book of Genesis, Breshit, the biblical book of beginnings, that we learn not only of the beginning of life, but also about life's end. And there we see that in the passing of the patriarchs and the matriarchs of our people, it is members of the family who come forward to speak words of memory and words of eulogy. So in keeping with that very ancient tradition, we're going to hear today from generations of Penina's family. And Ari, will you begin, please?
starting the old-fashioned way with a legal pad. Accidentally deleted my notes app on the phone. So I was lying in bed last night, and some words came to my head, and a little bit of a tune. I'm not sure how it popped in, it just did. And I said, I think that's Neil Young. I think that's a Neil Young song or some Neil Young lyrics. And I said, I'll find it in the morning. It was so late. I'm sure I'll just Google it, I'll find it, and I'll check it out in the morning. And I got up this morning, and there is no such song. There are no such words. And Diane said, you wrote a song. Not really a song, but a few words. So it goes like this, and I think it embodies who our mother was. You gotta give a lot to live a lot. You gotta give a lot to live. Join me, please. I need it. You gotta give a lot to live a lot. You gotta give a lot to live. So this sentiment, these words that came to me, implies that the richness of life is proportional to the energy and love you put into it. Essentially, it's a call to engagement and generosity to achieve a deeply experienced life. Energy, love. And by the way, this isn't this isn't me. It's not like an alter ego, but the family passed around several of jewelry and rings that kind of personify who Mom was. A lot of big things. And so essentially it's the energy and love, engagement, and generosity. 4 words that aptly define Mom. Energy. Mom had lots. Anybody who knew her knew that from the start in the morning. First thing in the morning when we were kids growing up, right over to the drapes, rise and shine. Come on. Oh, God. Start of the day, ton of energy that lasted all day long. To the end of the day, where she would always burn the midnight oil and be up probably till midnight or past. And I would always say, Mom, why are you staying up so late? Go to sleep. And her response was, she would say, I'll have plenty of time to sleep when I'm dead. And that's how Mom lived her life. She went, and did, and gave, and loved, and did so much for people. Energy. 2, love, which I intertwine with giving and sacrifice. She loved life and gobbled it up. She loved family and her dear friends. And she showed it in so many ways, including, first of all, giving of others. She got, in my opinion, most or a lot of her self-worth from giving and seeing happiness and goodness and helping other people. When it started from when she was growing up, she helped her parents, my Bubby and Zadie, take care of her only sibling, Ethel, who was born with cerebral palsy, and a pretty serious type of cerebral palsy that eventually she had to be in a wheelchair. Mom spent so much time helping Aunt Etty, as we all fondly called her, all through her childhood. To the sacrifice that she did in the summers. She taught Hebrew school for 25, 30 years, and in the summers, instead of taking the time off and just taking it easy, she wanted us to go to Camp Ramah in the Poconos, and it wouldn't have happened for obvious situations unless she worked. So she worked 5 or 6 summers at camp in the office to enable us to go. And let me tell you, it's not the most fun when your mom is there at camp, working in the office. But that was Mom sacrificing to give, which she felt was important to her and important to the children. Engagement. She always was engaged in activities. She was a true cosmopolitan woman who loved art, loved the city, loved anything that had to do with connection, and she was deeply engaged in Israel, support of Israel, and all things Jewish, which she passed on to the children. 4, generosity, volunteer work. Mom, again, the same thing as love and giving and sacrifice. She did a lot of volunteer work. She worked for years at the Weizmann Center of Jewish History, where she volunteered. She handed out challahs at Penn Hospital on Friday afternoons. She just gave a lot, including occasional donations to nonprofits. And so anybody who knows her apartment or wherever she lived, the mail stacked up to the ceiling always. And it wasn't so much that, well, she couldn't get rid of it, number one. Number two, once you start giving, you give a little donation, you know what happens, right? At least in the paper age. Everybody sells your name as a contributor, and every nonprofit starts writing you letters. And Mom could not get herself to throw those things out. I'd leave that there. I might give to that one. Don't throw that one out. I'm seriously considering giving them a donation. So that was Mom with her mail, and my opinion as to why it was overwhelming, for sure, how much was there. So while we mourn Mom today, we also celebrate a life of energy, love, engagement, and generosity, and I'll miss her dearly.
Josh, and with him, Kobe.
Thanks, R. That was beautiful. So today is a day of mourning, and the loss hurts, but this is also a day to celebrate Mom's amazing life. I didn't lose my notes piece, so I'm actually going to read, but so I apologize for that. She inspired so many thoughtful, she inspired so many throughout her 94 years and gave us so much to be thankful for. Thanks, everybody, for coming today and honoring her. It means a lot to us. The qualities that stand out to me, in addition to what Ari shared the most, are her creativity, her entrepreneurial spirit, her style, her love for her family, and her spunk. She was a force to be reckoned with. So she started her business once the three of us were in high school and didn't require as much of her attention. Her friend was a very talented fashion designer, and Mom convinced her that the man was taking advantage of her and she should start her own gig. So Sylvia's designs, Mom said, I'll find somebody, Sylvia. We'll take your designs, we'll get it made, we'll go find a place to sell this. And they did weekend shows in downtown Philly, apartment buildings, and at synagogues. After a year, Sylvia decided, you know what, I need a regular paycheck. But Mom was already launched and off and running. And with Dad's full support, she rented a space in Marlton in the side of a paint supply store. She got up at dawn to take the train into the city. She found people who would sell to her at a discount, and before long, she had a whole list of her favorite designers in the garment district. She came back late at night, and on more than one occasion, Mr. Stop and ended up in Wilmington, like at midnight, because that's when she came back. She loved everything about it, finding unique dresses that nobody else carried locally, negotiating deals, having dinners and drinks with friends, scrapping her way toward profitability. She especially loved designing the ads and figuring out how to market and build a loyal following. In a few years, again with Dad's help, she bought a store. The accountant knew she had to get lease payments off her balance sheet. And she embraced the excitement of retail store design, window displays, adding accessories. She loved every bit of it. And then she merged her love of business and fashion with her love of Israel. Mom traveled regularly to Israel and discovered many young, talented clothing designers. She was supporting the Israeli economy, she was staying ahead of her competition, and she was creating a brand for Fashions by Penina, which became With Love Penina. And of course, if she could find great deals on unique pieces and roll some gambling into the trip, that was a home run. And, oh, did I mention that the buying mart in Vegas became a regular part of the circuit? She ran the store with Cheryl's help for many years, and when it was time to step back, she did so semi-gracefully. She loved, she excelled in Cheryl's success, but of course, you know, it's hard to let go at some point. She was just the mayor of the store, showing up on Saturdays to greet the customers. And Cheryl, you did an amazing job running the business. Succeeding for a decade against the department stores, the online shopping, and the tough competitor who opened a bigger store down I-70 to sneak in and capture labels and pricing. But you know, you carried on the tradition really successfully. Mom had a creative passion that extended beyond the business to painting and sculpture. After taking some art classes in her 20s and 30s, she continued to create art until the end. At her senior community in Denver, she spent her Sundays in the art studio with her two closest friends, painting and laughing. And most of her recent art she created for her grandkids. It almost always had a Jewish theme and an uplifting message. And speaking of Denver, who has the nerve to leave behind family and friends who they love dearly to experience something new at the ripe young age of 92? She immediately found her peeps there and even started a Yiddish club at the JCC. She was taking full advantage of the new environment when we got the lung cancer diagnosis, but she never lost her optimism. She kept expecting it to just go away. Regular treatments, side effects, falls, surgeries, and rehab stints couldn't slow her down. The first rehab facility was awful, but she managed to highlight the two art projects in her departing thanks to the staff. Mom loved our dad, though she also loved life, and she knew there were experiences to be had. Mom and Dad saw the world very differently. One classic example, I designed a little addition for the house, which of course had like a sunken hot tub, which was big in the 70s. Who would do that? But when we were designing together, Mom wanted the whole addition to have glass. Dad wanted no windows. And that, right, that kind of describes who they are. So once her parents passed, they divorced, and Mom had several loving relationships over the following 30 years. And during that time, my parents' love for each other didn't diminish. She brought him soup, and we all took family vacations with new spouses. It was really unique. People marveled at the fact that, you know, it was just love was embracing, all-encompassing. Mom felt it was her mission to keep the Jewish religion alive. Damned if she was going to be the one responsible for our assimilation. And having lost a dozen of her aunts and uncles before she was even born, I understand why it was so central to her being. She would toss in Yiddish to the doctors if they had a remotely Jewish name, right? To the very end, her three favorite shows were Saturday morning Shabbat services on JBS with the 5 Chazans in Long Island, the Israel News through I-24, and of course, Lawrence O'Donnell. Mom could also be overpowering at times. Her determination and certainty in her views could cloud her ability to be open, but hey, do you know any entrepreneurs who aren't like that? She asked me almost monthly for the last 50 years if I had played piano lately. It was a guilt-weighted request disguised as a question. I did tell her last week I would start again, so you'll all have to keep me honest on that. She lived her life with flair and with style. She would never be caught without her lipstick on, even if she was on her way to the emergency room. And when the Reading terminal handed out T-shirts to all the volunteers, Mom told them politely, "I don't do T-shirts." When they insisted, she said, "Bye-bye." She was serious. I want to put, "I don't do T-shirts" on. Maybe we haven't talked about like the gravestone, but that'd be perfect. I don't do T-shirts. I don't do T-shirts. That was Mom. She was generous with everyone, as Ari shared. She opened her apartment to friends so they could take outfits that made them look stylish. She gave away her favorite jewelry. She was always gifting the staff with cookies and candy because they don't allow residents to tip. That was her workaround. Celeste, she likes regular M&Ms. Lee, he likes the large Reese's cups. She had saved hundreds of note cards and thank you cards, and I'm pretty sure she was trying to keep the U.S. Postal Service afloat single-handedly. I think she would have used them all if she had lived to 100. I was betting the over on that one. I'm not sure how it's possible, but she was a young 94. Family was central to her world, and she took great pride in all our accomplishments. She had a special relationship with each of her grandchildren, taking the time to get to know each one uniquely and offer support and, of course, a few suggestions. Her spirit not only lives on in us, but we are who we are because of her.
Who made me go after him? I think he did, actually. So in 2008, I'm Kobe. I'm one of the grandchildren, his son. In 2008, I was living for a month, October, in Philly, working on the Obama campaign, the first Obama campaign, and lived with Safta. And it was Yom Kippur of that year, and she said, "Why don't we go for a ride?" And we got in her car, and she drove us out to Strawberry Mansion. And if you've been to Strawberry Mansion lately, it probably isn't what it was when she was there. And I didn't know where we were going, but she said, "I want to show you where I grew up." And she took us to the small row house where she was, and she pulled up next to it. And there was a guy in his car in front of it, and he rolled down his window and sort of waved to us. And so we rolled down the window, and he goes, "Yo, what the hell are you guys doing here? What the hell are you people doing here?" And she goes, "Excuse me, sir, this is where I grew up, and I wanted to show my grandson what a lovely place it is." And he, expression changed, and he goes, "Oh my God, my family just moved in here, and that's amazing. So what lovely to meet you. I take that as a blessing and a sign that this will be a lovely home for us." And she said, "It will be a lovely home for you." And I think that speaks to a number of things. One being mishpacha, family, and from the earliest days I can remember, her grabbing my cheeks and saying, "Shana punim," to feeding me as much food as she could possibly fit in my frail frame. She was always about family above else, and giving what she could to make her home, both the physical and the more than that, the love part of it, what it was. She was tough, as has been mentioned, and a fighter. I got to see that especially just before she passed, when my wife and I just got married in August, and when she got diagnosed, she said, "Well, I'm going to be at that wedding." And at the time, we didn't know if that was going to be just a few weeks that she was going to live, but she made it much longer than that. And we got to enjoy her at the wedding, sitting front row in a giant red scarf. And I have here a pocket scarf, a pocket square that Safta picked out for me, her favorite color orange, to wear on the wedding day. We picked it out ahead of time, not knowing if she was going to make it, because I wanted to make sure that she was on my heart when I took that next step with my family moving forward. Luckily, she was there, but I'll continue to wear this in her honor and flair. And then I think, as my dad said, she was a young 94, and she still had so much life to live, and just showed me how you're truly never too young or never too old to die young. She had so many more years in her, and it just made me realize it doesn't matter when. As Ari mentioned, she cared for Aunt Etty, and I have some very early memories of visiting Aunt Etty. And at the time, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why Aunt Etty was in a wheelchair, why she couldn't speak very well, but I could see the love that she had for her. And it's only later in learning how hard she fought, because she saw how hard Aunt Etty fought for everything that she had in this life, and for her doing whatever she needed to do, fighting as hard as she needed to fight, was only a little bit compared. I'll say what she said to me right before the last time I saw her, which is, "This is not a dress rehearsal." She would say that all the time. This is not a dress rehearsal, and I see that. We only have the time that we have, and she made the most of it. So I'll take her memory with me as a reminder to live every moment fully. Thank you.
So Cheryl now. And with Cheryl, Liat, Ariel, and Ellie.
Does anybody know what this is? Those who knew her, it had to be this black. The toast had, yes, you did. The fire alarm probably went off and everything. This is it. It had to be hot and burnt. No, really? Okay. So, this is Mom. This is Mom. Love you. Okay, I was going to start late so I wouldn't have to cry, but it's just going to do whatever it does. There's something about the bond between a mom and her only daughter. It's fiery, bold, and valiant, and in the end, the most priceless gift. I grew into one of her best friends, and Mom became mine. She was a constant for me, and for that, I feel a gift of gratitude for having her for 94 years. My mom was formidable, life force, a strong, opinionated dynamo whose presence naturally commanded respect. A woman of velour, capable, often defined by her courage, wisdom, and diligence. She lived life to the fullest, like my brother said. I have a eulogy that she wrote. The many times I was out there, after the last year, I would go once a month, and we would spend time, and it was a gift from God that I really had that time. She wrote something. Every time I came, she would say, "That's enough," and it wouldn't be finished and this and that. And I do have something. One was illegible, so I couldn't go through that one. And anyway, Here's this. Yes, it's time to review my life, to tell you I am receiving a life well lived is a warm feeling, but it's warm, it's more than warm, it's gratifying and comforting. This is a very personal process, telling you my core values, my traditions, and how I want to be remembered for my beliefs for future generations. As I feel I provided guidance from my experiences and lessons learned, even stressing life purpose as days added up. Discovering a hobby which buoyed my psyche, telling everyone and anyone that if I were to live my life over, I would never change any of it. Not the who, underlined, not the why, capital underline, not the where, underline, capitalized, exclamation point. In 1929, my newly American parents had their first child almost immediately, following the ground they kissed in Philadelphia, and unfortunately Etty was born with cerebral palsy due to the doctor's mishandling. I came 5 years later and knew as I grew and matured that my task lay ahead with love, affection, and direction from Mom and Dad. Their guidance led me to become a wife, a mother with values, and a voice that continue to guide, inspire, and comfort my loved ones long after I'm gone. Love you.
Can everyone see me? Hello. Hold on. A little better? Hi, I grew. Hi, everyone. Okay. Growing up, Ariel and I would have sleepovers at Softa's. And we always did 3 things. We would bake, we would read, and we would sing the Shema before bed. After we ate dinner and baked something sweet and chocolatey, Softa would tuck us into bed, read us a book, or tell us a story of her childhood, sing the Shema, and tell us Laila Tov, good night, and that when we'd wake up in the morning, we'd make challah French toast together. This past Sunday, we celebrated Tu B'Shvat, the Jewish birthday of the trees. Our tradition teaches that passing at this time symbolizes a soul in transition and not at an end. This timing makes a lot of sense to me. Softa, a woman who carried her Jewish identity with such pride, passing just before the end of Shabbat, a moment considered a mitzvah, and right on the cusp of Tu B'Shvat as well. There's something deeply beautiful about that alignment, and it feels anything but coincidental. Softa was truly a force of nature. She was always learning, always reading, and doing her exercises that would flex her brain. She was my most stylish, wise, talented, strong-willed, and honest supporter. No matter what I did, she had my back. I feel really lucky to have grown with her for 28 years. She always said how proud she was of me and all of her grandchildren. But the truth is, I was just really proud of her. So thank you for being my best friend, Softa. I love you.
Okay, I'm not great with public speaking. I don't really do this. So bear with me, please. Grief. Grief is really real, powerful, and painful. The most painful part is trying to cope with it all. It's hard to think that I won't be able to see or speak to my Softa again. Spiritually, I can feel her when I want to, or when she wants to be felt, but it's just not the same, and it never will be. I grew up with my Softa being right around the corner my entire life up until June 2024 when she made her move to Denver, Colorado. I remember I remember vividly the day she left. It was me, my mom, Safta, and my Uncle Ari. I was hysterical, and I remember her saying, "Why are you so sad?" I said, "I'm sad because you won't be right around the corner anymore, and I love you so very much." I'm also just such an emotional wreck and emotional person all the time, so I just broke down. We said our goodbyes for the time being, and she went off. I feel very blessed to have had her throughout my life, and especially into my 20s. Not everyone can say they had their grandparents for that long. She, my Saba, and my Nana, rest their souls as well, took care of Liat and I while my parents worked and had their occasional date nights and or vacations. She made us costumes for Halloween and or Purim. I remember being in the basement in Cherry Hill with Liat and her making a Hershey Kiss costume from scratch for Liat. Trips to the Cherry Hill Mall were always fun because she was paying. She would always say how proud she was of all of her grandkids, the paths that we were taking, what we are doing in our lives, and what's to come. I feel very blessed that she was able to send her 3 children to Camp Ramah in the Poconos, and that my parents sent Liat and I as well, 3rd generations, and hopefully 4th generations to come later on. Her whole life was surrounded by Judaism. She always loved the way Liat and I were raised and things that we have done and are doing to continue that legacy. I remember our last full conversation was on my birthday. My mom told me to call her in case she forgot what day it was. Once I called her, she answered, "And you're calling me on your birthday?" I was just calling just in case. She said her wishes for me and shared that she was very proud of me and what I'm doing with my career, helping those who have struggled just like I did growing up. I'll miss everything about you. I'll especially miss you calling me Shana Punam. I will forever cherish and hold you close to my heart in everything I do. I will love you forever and ever till we meet again, my Safta.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ellie. I'm the granddaughter from Colorado. There's so much to say about this incredible woman that we're all here to honor today. My Safta was a force of life in every way imaginable. She was a strong presence not only in our family, but in her community. She showed up and gave back. She was an incredible artist. She always asked me about what books I was reading and what my hobbies were. Throughout my life, whenever we would talk on the phone, she'd always leave me with so many tidbits of wisdom. I can't even begin to unpack all that I've learned from her. In an attempt to summarize today, I think one of the most important things I learned from her is to be an active participant in life, to show up and put effort in and have hope. All that you had to do was watch her or have a few conversations with her, and you could see that she lived her life tenaciously, colorfully, and to the fullest. She was also funny. There were times when I would be delightfully surprised at her sense of humor. I'll never forget this one time, over a decade ago, when I was in high school and she was visiting us in Denver. I was driving us somewhere. It was just she and I in the car, and it was raining, so the streets were lined with puddles. There was a teenager walking down the sidewalk next to the street we were driving down, and right as I drove by the teenager, I accidentally hit a pothole filled with water, and it splashed all over this poor soul. I immediately felt terrible and told Safta, "Oh no, I think I just splashed water all over this poor boy walking by." I'm not sure what I was expecting her to say to me, maybe something like, "Well, you didn't do it on purpose, it's okay." But all she did was grab my arm and start laughing. And then I started laughing too. This is how I remember her. I love you, Safta.
Do I get to keep these? Okay. Well, you didn't leave me much. Penina passed away on Shabbat, which the obituary in the paper noted is appropriate for a person whose life was steeped in Judaism. Also appropriate was the fact that the Torah portion was Beshalach, the story of the parting of the sea and the beginning of our ancestors' journey to the Promised Land. Life, too, is often compared to a journey, and Penina's was clearly long, 94 years, and obviously very full. She was born in Philadelphia in 1931, and I didn't know this, her given name was Pearl. In her 30s, she chose the Hebrew name Penina, by which she was known thereafter, reflecting her strong Jewish identity and values. She went to public school in Philadelphia and then the Volksschule, which is a Jewish secularist humanist community, strong emphasis on the Yiddish language and culture. And she was very active in Habonim, which is a Zionist youth group and camp program, and she went on to attend Gratz College for Jewish Studies and earned a degree as a teacher. There's a saying in Hebrew, Kol hatchalot kashot, all beginnings are difficult. And I thought about that because Penina was born and raised in the Depression years, and then during World War II. This was not an easy time. And then the experience of having a sister who had such a severe ailment perhaps was the reason that Penina put so much energy into life and her life journey to compensate for what her sister could not do and to be extra good for her parents and a source of nachas for them. She taught Hebrew school for 29 years. Now, I think there's probably a special place in Olam Haba for anybody who does that. She taught at Temple Sinai in Cinnaminson, Beth Israel, and Camden. Spent 6 summers at Camp Ramah in the Poconos as assistant to the director. Now, I have to note that that's where my life journey and Penina's intersected for the first time. In 1972, I was a coordinator of activities in Ramah, and we worked in the same office building together. And then, more significantly, I think, in 1974, I was a division head, a Rosh Dah, for a group of 12 to 14-year-olds. And I really came to appreciate Penina for her experience as a parent. The group was a real challenge. And Ari was one of my campers who can attest to that. When I was having a particularly difficult time with discipline, it was Penina who would talk me down and help me to remember that oppositional behavior is age typical for that cohort. It's an important crossroad in my life journey. For her, it was, I think, just another expression of her commitment to Jewish life, along with the volunteering at the Weitzman Museum and the distributing of those challahs at Pennsylvania Hospital, bringing Shabbat to so many patients, and her volunteer work for Israel with Sarel over so many years. Having grown up in a Yiddish home, she was, of course, fluent, and so she started first a Yiddish club in Philadelphia, before that Yiddish club in Denver that you mentioned, which she did afterwards. She had a lot of pizzazz. Everybody who knew her saw that flamboyant style, along with that entrepreneurial spirit. And that led her into the world of fashion. Fashions by Penina and Marlton I did not know. With Love Penina, I think I did know. And I actually shopped there for my wife. Another item from the obituary in the paper caught my eye, and the shop was called With Love Penina. And that love was really what she put into her work and what she showed to all of her customers and to everybody who came into the shop or anybody who worked with her. And as we sat together the other day, you summed all of this up by saying she was constant in her love for Yiddishkeit, and she never stopped doing, she never stopped giving. She kept going for as long as she could. The last part of her journey took her from Philadelphia to Denver, where she eventually succumbed to her illness, surrounded by all of her children and with the support of her grandchildren as well. All life journeys must come to an end, and Penina's has after so many years. But the story of that journey now continues with all of you. And from everything we've heard today, it's very clear that her memory will be a blessing. We rise for a final prayer. Rachamim shochena b'mromim hametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina b'malot kedoshim tahorim kezohar harakia masidim et nihishmat Penina bat Moshe v'tova shahachal olama b'gan eden te menuchata An abal rachamim hastideha beseta kinafecha leolamim uhutzror bitrachim et nishmata arano nachlata v'tanoch b'shalom hamishkava v'nomar Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Penina Gould who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated.
Just want to note that at the conclusion of services at the cemetery at Crescent, family will be returning to Philadelphia, and they will welcome condolence calls, Shiva calls today from 4 to 7. I'm sorry, today from 5 to 8, and tomorrow from 4 to 7. And that will be at 2001 Hamilton Street in Philadelphia. That's apartment 1506.